Is there a convocation in your department or anything like that? Or we have an opening faculty?
Hi, Cammie. I'm Jay Sarson. It's nice to see you. How are you? I'm assuming red means off.
How are you?
Go.
Good.
Yes, you're on
All
right
right.
now.
Everyone, we got a hot mic. Everyone's got hot mics.
My name's Mark.
That one's on.
Red is on.
Yeah.
Oh, red is on.
Red is on.
Test, test. Test, test.
I didn't even bring up the pen.
If you, one of these buttons will, that's for you to talk. Override, I like that.
Hello. Yeah.
Are you? Override. It's not overriding. Oh, it's flashing now. Could you take
Flashing.
Tammy?
Oh. Yeah. This is on. Red is on. And this,
Nope.
Oh,
this is the override button.
All right.
And now you are in control.
I am in control. And the middle one?
Yeah, I think.
And I'm my gavel.
They didn't explain all those details to me. I think you just press that button.
We're gonna find out the hard way.
Good evening, and welcome to the West Hartford Public Schools Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, September 6, 2016. Welcome all back to the school year. We had an exciting convocation last week, and we're welcoming a lot of new members, including Taylor and Sarah. We will introduce them we'll let them introduce themselves when we get to that portion of the meeting. And we just had an event with some of our new directors and people in the executive and the administration. Lots to learn and lots to do, and we're all eager and excited and well rested for another exciting year. And we'll take it away. Can you please call the roll?
Blanks,
Here.
Ms. Exum,
Here.
Dr. Greenberg,
Here.
Dr. Overmeyer Velazquez,
Here.
Mr. Paul
Here.
Mr. Sarzen,
Here.
Mr. Zadanowitz,
Here.
Student Representatives Taylor Steer, and
Here.
Student Representative Sarah Berman.
Here.
Nice job, everyone. Also, a hearty welcome to Cammie Rogers, our new clerk of the board, who has been asked to gently remind us when we fall off of our procedures, because sometimes we tend to do, myself included. And let's start with Sarah, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no revision to the agenda order, and as today we do not have student participation, so sometimes we have students participate, come in and regale us with art and music and great feats of wisdom. I note that we have new microphones, so this is maybe a portent of technological changes happening in the district. We haven't been warned of this, but so we may have some, if there are any technical difficulties for today, we can blame it on the new microphones. Public communications, I saw one person signed up. If you would please come to the mic. And just as a reminder for those not familiar, comments on topics of interest from the public, which is pretty much everything. Board members do not respond. Individuals get 3 minutes. There's a 1 minute warning with a red card. A 2 minute warning with a yellow card, and then a red card up when that time is up. Welcome. Please state your name and your address.
Judy Wyman Kelly, 52 Thompson Road. Good evening. I'm here tonight to make some suggestions for the special education services offered in our town. Can you hear me? These suggestions are based on my daughter's unfortunate experience in 8th grade last year when the special education services she received were vastly inadequate. For the details about this experience, I invite you to reread the email I sent on June 5th to the board, the superintendent, and the current and former directors of pupil services. I would like to thank current pupil services director Gretchen Nelson for reaching out to me immediately upon receiving my email. First suggestion is an office of the ombudsman. West Hartford needs an ombudsman, that is, a person whose dedicated job is to help parents navigate the general and special education system and to be an advocate for students and parents when problems are not resolved in a timely fashion. In my experience, the current system feels like individual silos with limited communication. When the teachers failed to provide the necessary support for my daughter, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to take my concerns to the special education supervisor or the middle school administrators. And then, even after I approached both parties, it still took 7 months for the situation to be resolved. An ombudsman would have been very useful to me. The City of Hartford public school system does this very well with an office called the Welcome Center. Their mission is to link students, parents, principals, teachers, employees, and the community to available resources and ensure accurate information and quality assistance for all. I strongly believe that West Hartford needs its own version of a Welcome Center. Second, more transparency for special education services. The options for students in general education are provided in great detail. Yet for the student receiving special education, it's all a mystery. Only 2 of the many programs available for special education are listed on the town website. A parent only finds out about possible services once their child is eligible. How is a parent to advocate when that parent does not even know which programs exist? And finally, a special needs assessment survey or a needs assessment survey to parents of children receiving special education services. This type of survey would help the Board of Education and the administration receive parent feedback on current services and also suggestions for future services. Thank you for your attention this evening.
Many thanks to you. Would anyone else like to address the board? I think that needs to be turned off. No one else seen tonight? We have no unfinished business. New business, staff, and moving on very quickly to staff communication reports, which indeed is our entire meeting today. So we're looking forward to learning from Superintendent Moore and his exciting and wonderful team, including some new folks with us today, about where we are at the beginning of the school year. Mr. Moore.
Good evening. It seems like yesterday we were discussing how this was going to be the longest summer ever, and now it's over. There was a definite feeling as people came back this year of welcoming home, and I think this is something we forget about sometimes when we get excited about for vacations. We look forward to, oh, everybody's going to get away, and we forget that this is our children's home for a large part of the year. They spend more time. I always say to my teacher sometimes, I'm jealous that you get to spend more time with my kids now than I do. You get to know them in different ways than I do. And this is just it's wonderful to get kids home, especially after what's been a difficult summer, where children, adults, all of us really have had to grapple with questions of justice, questions of violence, questions of terrorism. And I think it's very important that our schools remain safe places. And by safe places, I don't just mean with sally ports and all the safety measurements we've made with cameras, but a safe place for kids to be kids, for them to learn. Children need stability, so I want to thank all of the principals and certainly most of all the teachers and all the support staff who have welcomed students back to that comfort zone where they're excited to be there. And again, not everybody's excited to start school again, I know that, but I think most people and most of the kids and definitely the adults, they pretend not to want to be back, but there is an energy when they come back to school in that first weekend. You get to talk to them about their days and who they saw and who they're with in their classes. So it's really been a very inspiring start to me, and I want to thank everybody that's been involved in that. And I also want to thank all of the board members, because I think for the first time in history, and I know how busy your schedules are, that all of you were at convocation. And it was a great message. It wasn't lost on our teachers or our administrators that you took that time out to be there, because you're an important part of the kickoff. And without your support and the way you do support our schools and the time that you give, we wouldn't have the district that we do. So thank you for being there, and thank you for all of your support, all of us that were a part of planning and convocation. So now the start of the school year is we have 9,500 students come back, and we're ready for them. And it's an exciting part. So I'm going to introduce my team to come up, because really they're going to talk about the different parts. Mr. Paul Vicenius, now officially Assistant Superintendent, will be discussing curriculum, instruction, and assessment work that went on during the summer, and how we're preparing for this year, and how we're going to learn this year. Not that we have every answer at the start of the year, but we're going to watch and try to pick some things up. Dr. Andy Morrow, back as my Assistant Superintendent, in charge of plant facilities, information technology, and transportation. If you have been around town, you have seen the work going on at one of the schools. We tried to capitalize on this long summer and get a whole lot of work done. Not mostly because every place had work, but most publicly at Charter Oak. And there is, I've never experienced a building opening before. And being there on the first day of school and being able to receive thanks from people that were at meetings 4 and 5 years ago as we discussed this. And, you know, one parent said, I can't believe that actually happened. And I said, yeah, that we figured out how we could do that. And it was just a great day. And Charter Oaks brought a lot of excitement. And he's not here, and I'm sure Andy will refer to him, but the work that Bob Palmer's done during the summer with all the projects, but especially throughout the Charter Oak process, being open and being receptive and answering calls and having to meet with all the variety of contractors, and people did not believe we'd be open. I had people coming up to me in June, July, well, there's no way that's going to be ready the first day of school. And I said, oh no, it'll be ready. And it's ready, and they have just done a tremendous job. So Andy will talk more about that. Rick Ledwith, as always, we plan for there being, we're not going to need any new administrators this year. And then you see the room upstairs and you think, well, we have no retirements. And then the week before school, we get a couple from people that decide, this summer was really good. I could do that all the time. And while that timing's unfortunate for us, it does happen occasionally. So Rick and his staff have been exceptionally busy, and recruiting that has also paid off this year with the diversity of our staff that he's hired. And Rick will talk more about that. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Gretchen Nelson to you. And Gretchen, from July 1st, has come on board. We've been meeting, I'd say weekly, but it's been more like daily. We talk to each other and just having things looked at with fresh eyes and questions, and being welcome to critiques, to talking to parents about what's best for children. Gretchen is going to be just a tremendous benefit to the district. So welcome to Gretchen. She'll talk about the programs that she oversaw this summer. Rosina Haskins, back again. This time she's talking about continuing education summer programs. I'm sure she'll work in some equity and diversity comments as she's there. She'll talk about that. And then Chip Ward is here to talk about first day of school enrollments. And as you can see, as you track enrollments in schools over the summer, from what I give you in May to what I give you in August, you'll understand why the summer isn't as relaxing as you think, because kids never move in where you want them to move in. They pick different places, and you can't pick the grade necessarily and the neighborhood, and it leads to some shuffling that occurs in July and August. But each of them will go through that piece, so I think we'll start off with Paul.
Thanks, Tom. And Taylor and Sarah, welcome. I think Tom hit the nail on the head. Regardless of grade level, the first day of school represents a new beginning. And last week, the buildings were, in fact, filled with an unmistakable energy from the teachers, from students, and from parents. And it's my hope that that same energy, passion, optimism, and motivation will do nothing except grow in momentum throughout the year. So the theme of my comments is about new beginnings. And while it's not my first time at this table, this is a new beginning in my role as assistant superintendent. And as such, I'm excited to highlight some of the efforts, both new and ongoing, our resolutions and our accomplishments. It was in this spirit that we gathered as an extended leadership team on August 23rd to welcome back our administrative team and welcome aboard our new members and frame our collective work for the 2016-17 school year. Our work is framed by the 3 Board of Education goals and the model of continuous improvement. And highlights from our strategic efforts under the 3 goals provide a snapshot of what we expect to progress within our work and move our district forward. Instructionally, we have leaned heavily on the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics Principles to Actions text, adapting the most critical teaching practices proven to strengthen not only teaching and learning within mathematics, but teaching and learning in general. These, coupled with our efforts at embedding 21st century learning skills and planning instruction with universal design principles, we expect to grow student achievement within not only literacy and mathematics, but also in the development of independent critical thinkers and students prepared to educate themselves over the course of their entire lifetimes. We seek to increase student access and opportunities for engagement, leadership, and achievement, and empower student voice in the classroom. This work goes hand in hand with our building of capacity for cultural proficiency within our teachers and our leaders through professional learning on cultural competence and through deliberate systemic structures. At our first extended leadership meeting, we engaged in collaborative review of district and school data. Taking a team approach, we identified areas of strength and need and collaborated on our collective strategies to build from these. We will continue to move this work forward as we plan for our individual goal setting with teachers in the coming weeks and our professional development planning at the department, school, and district levels. Over the course of this summer, we were fortunate enough to engage in professional learning, curriculum revision, and community support and outreach. Aside from our continuous efforts at review and renewal of our core subjects to include literacy and mathematics, we engaged teacher teams in an initial study of the new Connecticut Social Studies Framework, the Next Generation Science Standards. We wrote curriculum in support of exciting new courses such as Mandarin, which kicks off in grade 6 across all of our middle schools, and in grades K through 5 at Charter Oak International Academy. We also have new coursework at our high schools such as American Sign Language, Anatomy and Physiology, Genocide Studies, and Exploring Computer Science. We continued to build our capacity for our teachers by supporting summer workshops and training in advanced placement, STEM and inquiry learning, the role of religion within secondary social studies, and of course our new teacher orientation program. We built capacity for our students in our community through programs such as the Hannock Summer Program, our Summer ESOL program, Summer Connections for neighborhood families at Smith and Charter Oak, AP Boot Camp, and Project Spark. We welcomed over a dozen families to the Open Choice program, from the Open Choice program to West Hartford at a community orientation program co-hosted by Rosina Haskins and Carrie Jones. All of this energy was carried forward at Convocation last Monday, where we were entreated to the Smith STEM School Choir, a truly awesome student perspective from Estelle Cohen, a Smith graduate, with New Beginnings hosted by at Bristow Middle School this year. An inspirational address by Mr. Stephen O'Brien, our 2016-17 Teacher of the Year, and of course the musings of our own board chairperson and superintendent. So the only thing that I hope to convey is our collective belief that every day and every child bring us a new opportunity and a new beginning. Pending your questions, I'll be followed by our next director.
Thanks. Yeah, so we'll proceed individually, so if we have questions along the way, or afterwards, we can certainly go ahead. Understanding that this is a broad overview, and then during the year, we'll have a chance to hear in depth from everyone. I have to say, next to the USA Women's Gymnastics team, you guys are pretty amazing, just looking at you. All right. So any questions? Volleyball. Oh, yeah. No. And any questions for Paul?
Hi, first of all, those of you in our viewing audience don't know, but we got a long and thorough packet of information that provides the background. And so even though that sounded general, I just wanted to commend you on the kind of specificity that you provided, but also to show my ignorance. I don't know what some of the terms are, and I just wondered if you would translate them for me. And then I do have a different question. One of the things that you said that you did was incorporate principles of universal design for learning. What is universal design?
So universal design for learning is, we embarked on professional development in this area, I believe it was 2 years ago, and it's built on the idea that rather than retrofitting lessons to try to make accommodations for learning, that work should really be done in the forefront and in the planning through a universal design. The idea being that if you make a modification within the instruction that's going to help some learners, it will likely help all learners. So there are 3 large principles within universal design, but they boil down to very quickly engagement strategies, offering students choice, and attacking the different modalities of learning.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Second question, I'm just going in order of the report, not in coherent order. You have a sentence at the end which says, with the change to the state accountability system, we've adjusted our performance indicators accordingly. And I just wondered if you could say something about what the state accountability system, how it has changed.
Absolutely. So many of you may recall 2 separate points last year. We provided reports on what the new measures will be for a state accountability model. This was AYP, or annually adequate yearly progress, was kind of like the only state accountability measure. Now, aside from those achievement results on our state assessments, we have growth indicators, we have measures for chronic absenteeism, we have the arts access, we have the on track for graduation, the 4-year and 6-year extended cohort, and so on. I believe there's a total of 11 indicators, and these are things that we will report on throughout the course of the year, and they'll obviously make their way as progress indicators for our board goals.
Thank you. Okay, what I'm really doing is helping everybody else understand. I know all this, of course. It's just, okay. The third term this is under Quest. You extended your scope and sequence with a lens to explore integrated authenticity, which is a phrase I love no matter what it means. But what does integrated authenticity mean?
I'm assuming having authentic opportunities for learning. So, real world application of knowledge and skills integrated across multiple disciplines, integrated into the curriculum itself. So basically making certain that the curriculum is relevant, rigorous, and connected to students' everyday life.
That is excellent, and I'm going to use it in my class. Integrated authenticity. It's brilliant. Okay. Finally, I just have a question about Project Spark, which, again, for those of you in the viewing audience who didn't get to read this, it's a group that tries to increase diversity in various gifted programs and things like that. And I wrote down "yay" in the margin, so it's a great thing. But my question is, it just says it focuses on early identification and intervention among students in order to find them, to encourage them to think about joining these things, and then to educating teachers. And again, I think it's wonderful, but I just wonder how that's done. I mean, the question that we always kept asking was, how are people identified with Quest? And for Quest and those sorts of programs. And now you're saying you're identifying kids earlier, which is great, but how are you doing that piece?
This won't be something I can probably answer 100% specifically here, maybe to your satisfaction, but the overall concept, we're very excited to partner once again with UConn. So Project Spark is something brought to us from UConn through a grant provided there. And the idea is it's coupled, it's work with students, but it's also work with staff, coupled with trying to broaden the concept of what giftedness is, and to attract a more, with an end result of attracting a more diverse population within it. Working with early age children, K through 2. In terms of what some of those specifics are, I know that we've had last year, I think, a great presentation where they talked about the mindset of what it means to be a gifted student. How specifically Spark is dovetailing into that, I think it's a great question, and I can owe you a more detailed answer, but that's sort of the broadening the concept so people aren't always thinking, well, does that mean I just need to be 2 years ahead in my mathematics? No, there's lots of other levels of giftedness and what that might mean.
Close enough. Thanks.
Paul, I have two questions. And the first one is under the district development planning. And where it's stated that the plan is implemented and monitored throughout the year and portions of the plan are reported to the Board of Ed. How often will that monitoring be conducted? I didn't want to assume quarterly or?
That's a great question, Carol. We're actually working on one of our big projects with our extended leadership team was to engage them more frequently as teams and keep them grounded in the model of continuous improvement, which is to say, keep them grounded in the review of the results that are ongoing and development of the strategies that we want to implement. So my goal is that at all of our leadership structures, which really, you think about them, they're monthly in terms of when we meet with all the principals, when we meet with the department supervisors and so on, that we are doing that progress monitoring. And then the reporting out to all of you is really in accordance with the board calendar. As you know, we'll have, I'm going to be at this table frequently in the next couple of months, giving you the initial reports on indicators for advanced placement, for our state testing results, SATs, science, and Smarter Balanced, and then onward from there.
And this January's workshop, which we've discussed, will be focused on our district development planning now in the future and how it matches with the new state goals matched with the board goals, because the new state indicators will necessitate the board goals shifting in some areas, or at the very least reviewing with each other. So we'll start that work in November probably, where we'll look at, okay, what was everything, and then we'll come together in January, and so that we can put together during the second half of the year our indicators and board goals for next year as we work towards that. So you'll have a role in the district development planning in the same way.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had that I can't, page 6, where you refer to the vertical teams. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means, so forgive my ignorance.
A vertical team all by itself is generally just going to be either a leadership or a teacher team that spans grade levels, be they typically K through 12. I would need to look on page 6 where we're.
It's under curriculum review and renewal.
Sure. So when folks are meeting for curriculum review and renewal, generally we're trying to have representation not only from the different sides of town, but from the different grade levels, so that we can be sure that the curriculum itself is articulated throughout the grades. So if there's an area of emphasis in grade 3, what are we doing to underpin that in grades 2 and 1? Where does that lead to in grades 4 and 5, and so on?
Okay, thank you.
And these teams are also designed so that we don't get the same repetition you may have heard about in the past. I want ninth grade teachers to know what was taught in sixth grade. We don't want, every other year where kids make a dream catcher in the Native American unit. We want to make sure that we're moving forward. Yeah, that's true.
There's a question about, this may be a question for you, I'm not sure, about the broader structure of summer work, since every year we get these wonderful updates. And just to the extent, not that it's a judgment, but some of it's cutting and pasting from last year. Aside from Project Spark, which is a grant offered program, how do you determine, or how do you guys determine what to review? Is it that this is obviously a good choice, but is there any kind of question about thinking of vertical teams versus horizontal teaming, ways of kind of rethinking, integrating different programs, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, inevitably, we do both. I mean, that, you know, the work of the Curriculum Review and Renewal Council really goes through during the school year. They meet throughout the year, so the summer is kind of the overall review of it. So, you know, every year there are certain things that are done during the summer in curriculum writing, and it just shifts in terms of what areas need a focus. It could be new standards that have come across. It could be a district area of focus like mathematics, so you'll see that this year, next year, the year after, I'm quite sure. And in truth, we're coming out of the impact of the Connecticut Core, which kind of did dictate a lot of our summer work for years in terms of getting things in line. That's why now it's a good time to look at, okay, what exactly are we doing and how does that move forward? And that's the work that the Curriculum Review Council does during the year to talk about, okay, where are we? I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Paul.
Sure. Just briefly, for all the content areas and the programs themselves, there's a 5-year cycle for curriculum review. We have 6, I think they're mentioned here somewhere in the report. We have 6 that will be in review this year, 6 that presented last year, and they may have begun work on some of those priorities. And as Tom mentioned, you know, I know ESOL programming is in here. ESOL had a new framework. This summer was their 3rd summer of curriculum writing. They broke their grade levels down at the elementary level, K and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 5, and staggered a 3-year implementation on those new standards across those grade levels, and then also, you know, filtered in grade 6 the first year, grade 7, and then grade 8, and likewise with the high schools. So generally speaking, while you may see some repetition in the names of the content areas, the work itself is going to be staggered and built across a 5-year plan where hopefully, certainly the heavy lifting is over by year 3, and you're kind of moving into your just reinforcement and looking forward to your next review.
Thank you, Mr. Vicinis. Next up, Dr. Morrow, I believe.
Yeah, as Tom said, busy summer. We booked the dates in anticipating that this would be a long summer, knowing that we'd have a lot of work to do with Charter Oak and trying to maximize that time. And for those of you who have been by and such, you realize that it's a beautiful school and it's open and everything is going well for it, right on schedule. So I won't read through all of this because you do have all of it, but I'll hit a couple of highlights. First, I would like to start off, as Tom said, thanking Bob Palmer and Mike Longo and Paul Edlin and all of their team. They've done an incredible job this summer working in all of our buildings across all of the different areas and really working hard to make sure that our students are getting the best and that our students are safe and that our students are working in clean facilities. And so we're very proud of the work that they've done and proud of the work that their teams do each and every day. A couple of things to highlight from a district-wide standpoint. If you remember back to 2014, those of you who were with us then, we received funding under a state school safety grant. And part of that funding was to cover new expanded cameras, lock replacements for interior doors, and hardening certain exterior areas. And so proud to say that this has occurred over the summer. The system is coming online in September for both interior and exterior cameras at all of our schools. For that, the classroom lock replacement is underway, working in the evening shifts at our 7 elementary schools for the first phase, and then we'll go ahead and we'll extend that to the rest of the buildings this fall. And our door entry systems have all been upgraded. When you go to swipe into a building, hopefully you'll see there's a larger camera system. And what we've been able to do is we've been able to fold the ID swipe system into the camera database. And so automatically when someone comes to the door and requests entry, the system saves 3 seconds before and 3 seconds after they're buzzed into a building. So we have a very secure record of who's in each building, which is an improvement over our previous system. If you look down the list, obviously Charter Oak is the big story for the summer, and again opened on time and under budget, and Chip can have more to say about that down the road. But we'll have some dates to you shortly. We're going to go ahead and do a dedication ceremony, probably in November. I want to go ahead. We want to make sure the parking lot's up and going before we bring everybody in for that, and so we'll do it in November. We'll also email you with some dates and some times if you'd like to come and tour the building when there's kids there and get a real sense for how it functions as a school. Because as Tom mentioned, it's completely different with over 500 kids running around there. It's a pretty special place. The good thing is they don't get lost because they just circle. It's just like little hamster wheels. Over at Conard, we replaced the home side bleachers in the press box. We replaced the gym main floor at Hall. We reconfigured the main office in the entrance. This is something we've been trying to do now for probably 5 years. And the idea of having an entranceway at Hall where there's the man trap where you come in, are buzzed into the office, and it's going to really increase the security. So we flipped the entire office at Hall. If you've been over there, the office is beautiful. It's almost finished. They got hung up on some of the glass that was shipped damaged, and so we've got a little bit behind on that, but that should be done shortly. The main gym floor has been refurbished there as well. Over at Smith, the gym floor has been redone, and the science room has been remodeled into something that's a little more flexible for their programming. At Webster Hill, we replaced the auditorium seating, if you remember right. This was something we were trying to do last year, but the contractor couldn't guarantee we would have it done before the concert season, and so we put it off, and this summer we're able to go back and do that. If you get a chance to go over there, it came out very nice. It's beautiful. And we've painted all the interior classrooms there and in a number of schools. As you can see then, all the statistics, the normal statistics for transportation, for IT, and for busing. Are there any questions I can answer?
Thanks, Andy. The LED hallway lights in Hall
Yeah.
and Conard, I noticed even the street lights they're doing, it's obviously.
Yeah.
What's the return on investment on that?
I don't have the exact figures on that. I can get that to you, Mark. I know that we've done the data on that. I'll tell you, the main return that we see is it's startling going in both of the high schools. Just the difference in the quality of the light is pretty impressive. And so I think that's been a payoff, but I can get you the information on what the return is for that.
No, I know it's probably going to help with our
Absolutely,
electricity bills. 'Cause those
absolutely.
lights
It
are
all,
on.
it all helps with the conservation, and
Yeah.
it helps, really have us be models for that.
And for our largest roof in district, King Philip, is it done this now, or do we have one more year on it?
We have one more section on that. This section was the sixth grade wing, and then there's one other section for next summer as well.
And then the Smith
It's the
stems.
ongoing
Yeah,
King
it's
Philip
you're
roof.
gonna have to redo it, because when it's done, it's.
Pretty much, that's how we work at the King
Yeah.
Philip roof, yep.
The gym floor at Smith, I know that when we toured last year, there were some issues that it had just been refinished and it was already peeling up. Did you guys go down to the wood on that one, or?
My understanding, and I can get you information, but we took it down to the wood on that and refinished up. So it should have fixed all the problems there.
Just curious, because those are the things that when we were touring
Yep.
last year, that all came up.
Yep.
No, thanks, a lot got done. The schools really look well. Really good job.
Two questions for you. So with the Conard gym floor, is there a timetable for completion on that one?
Yeah, it should be done the 9th or the 10th. We lost some time based on the humidity. The worst time to redo a gym floor is during the summer, which is the only time we can redo a gym floor, because you run into humidity, and so there were a good 2 solid weeks that the wood is sitting in there acclimating to it, and when humidity is over a certain percent, you really can't lay it down, because you're going to have too many issues then when it shrinks or buckles. And so we lost a little bit of time, but the teams have been shifting schedules around to different gyms, and so we should be all set on that.
And then the last thing, I just have a comment, and also to extend to Mr. Palmer on what a great job he did in coordinating, not just the erection, but the cleanup. I was so impressed when I saw the number of trucks that have to pick up the debris, if
Yep.
you will, how they came in and went out. It was like artwork.
Yeah.
And there's like no disruption to the community. I said, wow, this man needs a medal because he did a terrific job.
He did do a
So
great job.
thank you for
The whole
that.
team there did, and we were really happy with it. It was funny because there'd be times that Bob and I would be standing there like little kids for like a half an hour, watching the machine take down pieces of the building. It was mesmerizing to watch how they were a well-oiled machine, you know. This group sorts it, this group trucks it off, and it just disappeared. It was pretty neat to see.
Thanks. First of all, I want to second Carol's point on a different note, which about Bob Palmer, who I did not know before this. He was also, in addition to being efficient and effective, unfailingly friendly and polite and generous. And a lot of people, me included, pestered him with questions, and some of them, you know, I'm sure we were a pain in the ass, and he never acted like we were. And so I just really wanted to say I thought that was really wonderful. He's a wonderful person, and we're lucky to have him.
Yeah.
I have a specific question, which is, did you actually say man trap?
Yes. It's a technical term.
Absolutely. I've never heard that before. I just thought that was
It describes that type of foyer. It's a.
yeah, no,
term that
I
describes it.
figured what it was, but I
Man trap.
thought, wow.
Because if,
from that movie.
yes,
Exactly.
the premise is that if we don't want you to enter, you're stuck.
You're not
in
going
the
to.
trap.
Exactly. No, it was clear. I couldn't actually believe that was the term. Okay. My real question was, this list of things that were done they were clearly necessary and clearly important, and I'm totally impressed. I'm also mindful that, and whenever we go to PTO meetings or whatever, each PTO has its own issues about, well, how come they don't paint this, and how come they don't do this? And I'm just wondering, how do the priorities get set?
Well, as we work through the different priorities based on the CIP, as you remember from the CIP process, and when we go ahead and start it this year, we usually have a certain allocation for different areas. We say, you know, we're going to do this much for painting, we're going to do this much for brick, we're going to do this much for pavements and so forth. And based on the work that Bob and Mike Longo, who's the head of maintenance services, based on the reviews that they do and the priorities that they set, that's where we go ahead and judge that. You know, some of it's not sexy. No one ever says, boy, that brick repointing looks great. But those are the type of things that we have to do from a maintenance standpoint. Unfortunately, it's the things like the bleachers, like the fields, and those are the kind of things that I think people understand more, and the gyms understand more than some of behind the scene work that we do, like the painting of the classrooms, like the hallways, like, you know, we every summer usually spend a certain amount of money retiling floors in classrooms and taking out old flooring and putting in new flooring.
I recommend pointing it out. We spent a fortune repainting our chimney, and for months afterwards, we'd say, look at that chimney, because you're absolutely right. It's completely invisible. But it's great, because everybody thinks that their painting job is the most important, but there's somebody who's actually assessing this.
Absolutely.
Great.
No, we go ahead and we set those priorities, and we work with the principals on that too, and we understand that, you know, look, I understand this is a priority, but you're going to have to wait for 2 years because this has to be done from a safety and security standpoint first.
I do think it's important, Charlie. I'm glad you asked the question, because when some people are asking about things, there's a certain, I believe schools should be warm, inviting places. Part of that is parents also. I'd love to say we're doing things that we want to do that are beautification projects. The truth is, with the money in our CIP budget, we're doing them when we have to do them. I look at the science labs at Hall now that we have the money set aside for that, and thanks with the legislature, hopefully. That's something we have to do. We don't have a choice. It's like the gym floor at Conard, you know, because I think, well, should have gone to the gym floor was 60 years old. It was buckled in places. I mean, it was the original floor of Conard's gym. So that actually slowed it down, the construction process too, because everybody that pulled it up had never seen anything like it before underneath. So now we're at the point where this is a discussion we're going to have, and we're going to have that with the town council as we plan out over the next few years, because we know we have ventilation issues. And I'm the first proponent of it, and it's an awkward position when people say, why don't you do this? I'm like, I'd love to do this. This is something that we are going to have to talk about, and how do we plan this out over the next 10 years, where we're probably going to need a meatier capital improvement budget not to make things nice, but to keep up with what we have to do.
And with that in mind, it would be, I know it's the first meeting, but we're already, of course, thinking about finances at all time. Prior to the CIP, to think about different scenarios of increasing overtime and having the specific, those kinds of, whether it's HVAC, it's the new windows, and whatever these kind of long-term things. What we've typically done is the necessary but routine kind of surveillance and then approving of the CIP budget without kind of thinking about strategic planning and of changing over, because the numbers have just sort of changed slowly as opposed to kind of, so really just a kind of a rigorous critique and understanding of the number itself in addition to the projects. So let's make sure we do that, please.
We'll have some ideas for you on that. We've been working on some different ideas.
Just lots of money.
Oh, yeah. But it's doable. It's doable.
No, but in
It's a
serious, we need,
long-term.
right, and understanding these kind of, not only the safety concerns, but also that we pay now more to save more in the future. Anyway.
I just have a probably minor question, and you did say, Andy, that you speak with the principals about priorities in the buildings, but who decides if you kind of do a paint job over something that was existing on the wall that the community really liked in a building?
That's on the
And it's
principals.
gone. It's on the
Yeah,
principal.
we don't go in and just randomly paint.
Okay.
So the principals would decide, hopefully they've decided with their PTO and with their teachers, but that's what they would decide.
Okay, and I also have to compliment, totally agree with Cheryl, the building is beautiful. I did watch a little bit as it came down, but it's so exciting in the evenings, I'm often on the fields, to see the community come out on the playgrounds. It's just wonderful, so I can't wait to get the full tour. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I forget if I'm thirding or fourthing or fifthing, but thank you very much, Andy and Bob and the whole team. As an immediate neighbor of Charter Oak, I have a special view of the construction right outside my window. And the neighbors have been through quite a bit. It's nice to see things finally coming together and getting back to normal. You mentioned the playground. It's amazing. From the first night it was open, there was a huge crowd of kids. They went all summer without a playground, and it's really neat to have that back. Charter Oak and Morley have a very special setup, the way they're situated on the property where the playgrounds are part of the neighborhood. And so it was nice to keep that with the new building. Really, really appreciate that. Saw folks laying down sod too. Got to give kudos to that. That was some hard work, and I know they were pressed for time. Did it great. I also want to say something else. And Mark, the Army guy in me, I went in Duffy the day before school, and I imagine every school is like this, but the shine on the floor was unbelievable. The Army guy in me, I had to walk to the side. I couldn't walk in the center because I don't want to scuff the floor. But kudos to the whole team for all the hard work getting ready.
Thanks.
And just, I know we'll have this presentation later on in the year, but some more updates on security, the cameras, all of those kinds of details. That comes later on, correct?
September 20th, Chief Gove will actually be
Perfect.
here with
Is
Eric
that-
Dempsey and myself.
Right, 'cause
And
we're
we'll
gonna
talk
want some-
about what we've been doing, and hopefully by then we'll be able to actually show you a live feed from the cameras and so show you what the software can be doing.
Okay,
For that.
that'll be helpful, thank you. All right, thanks. Moving on to Mr. Rick Ledwith.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back, and welcome to our new student reps. I will begin my report by highlighting our spring and summer and late summer recruiting results. We added 52 new contracted teachers to our professional staff this year. That's down a little bit from last year, where we were at 55. We also added 17 interim teachers to our professional staff as well. In addition, we added, as you all met upstairs, 12 new administrators to our leadership team. And adding 70-plus teachers and administrators to our staff is no easy task. Required a tremendous amount of work and effort on a lot of people's behalfs. And I'd like to thank our principals, our assistant principals, our department supervisors, our countless numbers of teachers that served on our interview committees, as well as parents who served on our interview committees as well. So we wouldn't be before you this evening with the quality of candidates that we have without all of their hard work. Our turnover this year was 5.5%, down a little bit from 6.1%, a little bit higher than I thought it would be in the spring, to Tom's point. I think I said it was around 3% at that point at our last board meeting, but it spiked up to about 5.5%. And we categorize the reasons why people leave into 5 main categories, the biggest one being retirement. And the one that we keep an eye on from year to year is the number of teachers who move from from West Hartford to another district within Connecticut, not outside of the state. And that number's been pretty stable over the last couple of years, and that's at 15. Of course, the quality of candidates that we had to choose from this year was exceptional, like it is every year. We had 2,500 people apply for open positions in West Hartford, and most of these talented and dedicated educators were the first choice of our hiring principal or department supervisor. 73% of these educators had a master's degree or higher. 22 of these folks actually had prior experience in West Hartford, either as a long-term sub, a paraprofessional, or a teaching assistant. So they come to West Hartford knowing our expectations, knowing our culture. And the remaining candidates come from a wide range of experiences, some coming right out of school to their first teaching jobs, others coming from working several years in other districts around the state and around the country. And again, I'm proud to say that several of our new teachers are themselves graduates of the West Hartford Public School, so coming back to work in the district that they grew up in, which is always great to see. In terms of the diversity of our teaching staff, as Tom mentioned, we're proud to report that 24% of our new teachers were diverse teachers. That's up from 22% last year and 16% 2 years ago. So that's a very important board goal and an important goal for all of us to ensure that the diversity of our teaching staff more closely reflects the diversity of our student population. So there remains a gap, but we're working at it. We're making progress. And I think adding the diversity advancement responsibilities to Rosina has had a tremendous impact in her first year. With those new responsibilities. The Equity and Diversity Council is an example of that. The Future Educators of Diversity program is another example of that. So we're hopeful that with these types of programs and expanding on those types of programs that we will have more success as we move into the future in terms of enhancing the diversity of our teaching staff. In terms of the orientation program, we had orientation on August 25th, where we welcomed all of our new teachers. It gives us a great opportunity to talk to our teachers, assimilate them to West Hartford, talk about some of the things that we think makes West Hartford special and unique, like our Equity and Diversity Council, like our LGBTQ Staff Advisory Committee, like our Leadership Academy, and our focus on professional development. So our new teachers got a chance to learn about all of those things and then got to learn about our mission and our vision and our goals. Laura White, who's a teacher over at Hall High School, helped facilitate the program with us on the 25th, and by all accounts, it was a great assimilation to West Hartford. Culminated with a luncheon down in the auditorium. Mr. Polyuk and our mayor joined us to welcome all of our new teachers, so it was a great day for our new folks. Also wanted to let the board know that our collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education and the Administrators Association expires on June 30th of 2017, so this June. And we have to follow the state statute in terms of negotiating a new contract, so we have to actually start that process this fall, similar to the teachers' situation that we had last fall. So we will sit down with them over the next couple of weeks, and we will set ground rules and future dates, and then we will negotiate through the month of October into the early part of November. And then if we do not have an agreement at that point, then we would go to mediation, similar to what we did last year with our teachers. And hopefully we'd have an agreement at that point, but if we did not, we'd have to go to arbitration, and that would be resolved by the holidays in December. So we would ask any board representatives who would like to join us for those negotiations, please let us know. We welcome your input, and we'll let you know when the dates are set up. Similar to the teachers' negotiations, the meetings take place in the evening, so outside of the normal workday. So if you're able to help us out, we'd appreciate it. So that summarizes the HR report. I'd be happy to answer any questions the board had.
Yeah, thank you. Rick, nice job. I want to commend you and your staff on keeping the retention rate very low. That's terrific. But I was very struck by the number of positions that people leaving the district ascended to. And I think that speaks volumes about the systems we have in place for developing talent. I mean, you hate to say that we get rated because of who we are, but unfortunately, when you're as good of a district as we are, when you cultivate as much talent as we do, that's inevitable in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have full faith that going forward, we'll still be able to fill that talent base and
And we did.
continue to develop it
Yeah.
and continue on as we plan to. So kudos to you and your staff.
Thank you. And you're right, Jay, a number of the folks that did move on to districts around the state moved into leadership roles. So it wasn't into a teaching position, but into a leadership role. So, thanks.
Thank you. I totally agree, and I wanted to, first of all, commend you on the incredibly impressive statistic of the 24% of faculty being, the new faculty being folks of color, I assume. And I just wanted to ask about other forms of diversity and if there's the same kind of attention paid to those LGBTQ folks, the disability community. Just wondering how you understand diversity and if there are goals in those other areas as well.
Yeah, it's a great point, Cheryl. And our focus obviously has been on teachers of color, but certainly West Hartford is a very diverse community in so many different ways. And, you know, we've had our LGBTQ Staff Advisory Committee, which has been a very public committee for the last 3 or 4 years. And that's been, I think, a draw for some diversity there. In terms of folks with disabilities, everyone who was at convocation probably noticed that we had a sign language interpreter there. And so we do have a hearing impaired teacher actually who's actually teaching American Sign Language. So yeah, great point. And certainly we look at the whole scope of diversity, not just ethnicity. Yeah.
Thanks, as always, Rick. We welcome Dr. Gretchen Nelson to the board table. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to take this first few minutes just to thank you and Mr. Moore for the opportunity that you've provided me to serve this incredibly talented and dedicated pupil services team and ultimately all the students that they touch. Because it's so important that we provide appropriate services for students to make sure that they can fully access their education and they're making meaningful progress. So thank you. My first few months here on the job have been incredible. I've had opportunities to meet with teachers, with parents, with students, and it's been a great few months. So I would like to present you with the good news of the Pupil Services Department. So let me begin with staffing. We are fortunate to have Emily Daigle as one of our new supervisors. Emily's already highly regarded by administrators and teachers at the middle school level. And we're also pleased to announce that we hired 17 new staff, including 14 teachers and service providers, 2 nurses, and a board-certified behavior analyst for the Brayburn TLC program. This summer, we received notification from the Connecticut State Board of Education informing us that we were again awarded the highest determination, not very exciting, but meets requirement, level on our annual performance report. I'm also pleased to announce that we maintained our accreditation in the National Association of the Education of Young Children. So several new state mandates implemented this summer will have some bearing on the West Hartford Public Schools and the Pupil Services Department. So we are implementing and planning. They include student data privacy, penalties for making school threat, dyslexia screening, and clarification regarding students with ADHD and eligibility for services. So the Pupil Services Administrative Team met in June to take an initial look at results from the year and to put final touches on the priorities and initiatives for the 2016-2017 school year. They will include maintaining focus on the effective development and implementation of IEPs, on universal design for learning, thank you, Paul, for that eloquent definition, and scientific research-based interventions. This year, we will participate in a comprehensive Curriculum Council program review of our post-secondary program. And we will also continue to review and assess the needs of the TLC programs and mental health issues across the district. We will examine and evaluate the service delivery of the Early Learning Center, working closely with our new department supervisor of early childhood, Irene Garneau. We will assess and address disproportionality in compliance with IDEA and 504 implementation, and the pupil services staff will engage in an exciting professional development series that will inform and support our initiatives. We'll implement the paraeducator evaluation tool and process and distribute an updated paraeducator handbook. Finally, significant priority to engage parents at all levels, including those parents of SEPTO, will be the focus of our department meeting tomorrow. The school counseling department was very busy last year, and during the 2015-16 school year, they initiated a restructured service delivery model to provide increased support for those students that are transitioning from the middle school to the high school. In addition, counselors fully implemented 504 Direct, and they increased their use of digital social media to reach and engage more students and families in activities and events. And in the counseling department, participated in vertical and horizontal professional development. For the 2016-17 school year, the counseling department has outlined several initiatives, including an evaluation of the new service delivery model for the 9th grade transition. They will also continue to review, build, and integrate new curriculum for grades 9 through 12, enhance the parent advisory work, build case manager capacity for the use of 504 Direct, and participate in a curriculum council program review. And finally, I'm excited to speak with you about the 2016 ESY program because I got to see it and participate in it and visit. The Pupil Services Department provided summer programming to meet the needs of 290 pre-K through post-secondary students. They received those services at Whiting Lane, Bristow, and Wampanoag. There were 43 staff and 168 non-certified staff worked with students to provide opportunities to maintain their skills while they enjoyed new friends and teachers, and in some cases, in new environments. Mike Davis and Susie Holt deserve recognition for their administration of a very highly successful ESY program.
Thanks very much. Questions for Dr. Nelson?
A couple questions. Hi, Dr. Nelson. Could you explain the definition of PLAAFF? That's in the continued implementation of standard-based IEPs. I just didn't know what that meant.
The PLAF.
Oh, it's award.
It's very nice.
Yes. So that is a portion of the IEP document that refers to a student's present levels of performance. And so we're going to continue to use best practices in order to determine accurate present levels of performance. And so that is, again, another one of my initiatives. We are really going to be looking to partner with Paul and his team on having our special educators have access to regular ed assessments in order to really determine where a student is in relation to their same age peers, which is a very important way to measure that current level of functioning.
Thank you. And I am so happy to hear about the para evaluation, that you have an updated handbook. I'd love to hear more about that. I mean, there's so much here.
There is a
And I know
lot.
you'll be coming back, but
And
I
I'm
just.
going to be coming back in December and excited to do so.
Okay. And also about the SEPTO engagement. What does that look like tomorrow? Is that is that going out into the schools, the SEPTO engagement piece, did you mention?
The SEPTO engagement piece, I have partnered with the SEPTO board in order to bring them some resources. They've met with me several times over the summer to talk about things that are important to them that they'd like to hear more about. And so I'll be speaking at their first board meeting and then continuing on a monthly basis with them to make sure that we're definitely meeting the needs of all the parents in the community and their students. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. People talk so much about how wonderful you were. I suspected it had to be overkill, but it wasn't. It's, it's just great, the stuff that you're already taking on. I have a bunch of questions that maybe are just sort of thoughts for the future. And again, just going in order of your report. The dyslexia screening, I just want to say, I don't know that this is the appropriate venue, that there are other vision-related issues that can impact learning in addition to dyslexia. And there are people who do that kind of testing and training. And I just want to raise the possibility that we incorporate those sorts of
Absolutely.
testing things too. They can make a huge difference in
And this-
reading and things like that.
And this related directly to the mandate that passed this summer in terms of the state giving us guidelines on those specific tools. And so they came out with a menu this summer. And so we'll make sure that we're accessing those in accordance to state regulations. But it is my experience that in this district, we are always looking for ways to increase our ability to accurately assess and then present appropriate strategies.
Yeah, that's great, and we can talk more about that if, anyway. The second question is just, and you mentioned this in your presentation too, a focus on disproportionality. What does that mean?
So looking at the numbers of students by race, by economic background, by gender, are we disproportionately identifying students with special ed concerns and needs and services?
Really important. I'm so glad I asked, because that's wonderful. In that same discussion, you talk about looking to create more specialized support for students with needs that impact behavior. I totally get that. But there are, of course, also needs that may not impact behavior per se, but may impact learning or things like that. And so I just wanted to make sure in my paranoid way that you were also doing that, even though you only
Absolutely.
referred to this.
Absolutely. And it's just one of the initiatives that, again, we're being asked to look at to make sure that we are including impact of behavior in addition to academic concerns.
Great. In that same sort of agenda, places like Strive, which are designed to meet the needs of some of those kids, is there also focus on the education, the curricular piece there in those sorts of places? They're wonderful about providing services. I just again wanted to ask: is there also focus on the educational mission of these places?
Absolutely. In the times that I have visited those programs, the teachers that are implementing the services are working with their gen ed partners to make sure that the curriculum is running parallel to the curriculum that a student would be getting in a less restrictive environment, especially because the hope is that always that we are transitioning students from those more restrictive placements to their least restrictive environment in the gen ed setting.
I think that's great. And again, I had a child in one of those programs, and I am eternally grateful. But I have to say, they're not always up to the same educational expectations. That's all. I'm just going to.
I hear you.
Okay. I also just wanted to second the suggestion of the person who spoke right before the meeting about transparency. It is true, again, as a parent who had to do these things, that it's not fully clear what's available until it's either given to you or not. And I hope that in the time to come, we can make those alternatives much more visible so that people have a sense of what maybe they can use. But that's just another suggestion. The Parent Advisory Committee is looking at counseling and things like that, and I think that's fabulous. And I wonder, and maybe this is not the place to ask about it, but is there also a parent advisory committee or some kind of structure dealing with questions like homework? Or, now it's not a counseling thing, but the level of homework, the amount of homework, those sorts of broad questions that, are you getting feedback from families as well as from teachers?
Let Paul address this.
Yeah, I would suggest that forum is likely their principal's coffee or the different high schools, generally in the middle schools, will have that type of community engagement that's really an open forum. I know that I've already been invited to one of our high schools by a parent that's coming in, and they want to raise some issues and have representation there to talk about it. So that generally is the way those things bubble up.
That makes sense. I'm just hoping that there are also more sort of systematic and structural ways to look at it overall.
Oh, in terms of like where we've had an initiative where we're looking to have a major overhaul and the inclusion of the parents, certainly that's something that we would look at. The most recent example that comes to mind, when Dr. DePalma had a assessment advisory, we were certain to have a parent representative on there. It was a representative among a committee versus a focus group or advisory, but I think that's needs dependent on what the different project is and what the scope of it is.
Yeah, I was just mindful of, among other things, what you talked about at the end of last year, Tom, when you talked to the seniors. And they talked about all the pressures on them and the expectations, and I just thought, we ought to take that seriously. Again, not incident by incident, but broadly. So that's great. Again, these are just sort of things to think about. And finally, just trying to make sense of my notes here. One of the initiatives that you talked about was reconvene school counseling and clinical staff horizontal and vertical teams to enhance transition practices. And I hope that means some kind of coordination of care, and if it doesn't, shouldn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that's where the vertical team comes into play there, and making sure that practices are aligned, that on all levels, that the middle school is preparing students and adequately communicating that to the high school staff, and that information is transferring so that all students benefit.
Great, so they don't get lost in the
Absolutely.
something that had decided last year. Perfect, that's good to know. Thank you so much.
So one other point, I mean, given the success of West Hartford with special education and it's become a destination district, one thing I'd want to have us in the conversation moving towards budget season, again, talking about the money is, you mentioned new people with expanded services. Are we doing enough? Are we doing, kind of making sure that the board understands the pressures on your team, on our students and our families, given state mandates and all these other things that are going on. Because we need to map that out as we go out. And I'm really looking forward to December and the deeper dive into all this, because we all have some learning to do. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to Rosanna Huskins. Welcome back.
Welcome back to you as well. We had a productive summer. Overall, our continuing education summer programs continued to do pretty well. We saw a slight dip in our high school credit recovery enrollment, largely due to many outside districts doing their own summer program or credit recovery programs at no cost to families. What remains really attractive for our in-district students is the opportunity to earn get-ahead credit and non-credit enrichment opportunities. So we continue to thrive with respect to that. This year, our past enrollment, summer's past enrollment reflected that 88% of our students took get-ahead credit bearing courses and non-credit enrichment courses. So we only had about 12%, and that was across 30 schools that took credit recovery classes to remediate or make up for failed or missed work. As Gretchen talked about, we had a nice partnership with Pupil Services that aligns with our inclusion philosophy with our early education programs. They continue to be very positive. They prepare students for, school readiness. Extended school year opportunities are afforded to them to just continue their learning throughout the summer and allow them to be active and productive and develop social skills and academic skills as well, and to retain them so that there isn't regression. As you know, our summer adult education programs, we have two that go on throughout the year. The mandated adult education program, we had two that go on through the summer, and One is the NEDP, the National External Diploma Program, and the citizenship classes. And they're generally smaller cohorts that of adult learners who are so close to completing their requirements to earn a high school diploma or complete the naturalization process. And so, you know, having an interruption in the summer would delay that for them. And so we continue to meet with about 30 adult student learners throughout the summer, 35 enrolled this past summer to be exact. And finally, our Life Learn Enrichment Program continued to offer exciting educational experiences in response to the interests of the community. We do have a Facebook page for that, so we kind of monitor that to hear what's on the minds and the interests of our community members. And again, we offer something for everyone at every stage of life. This year, we ran 77 courses. We ran 42 local and out-of-state bus trips as well. So it was a productive summer. We look forward to a productive year. And we always look forward to working with you, with the board, to improve the diversity and the quality of our program. We look forward to the work of the EDC this year to build the cultural capacity and competency of our staff across the district. And this year, we're welcoming parents to really become more involved in the work of the Equity and Diversity Council. Our first meeting this year will be next Tuesday, September 13th at 3:45 here at Town Hall in room 400. We open the floor to any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just have a quick question, actually. What was the time? This is not my question, but what was the time of this meeting that you said?
It's 3:45.
3:45, thank you, okay. My question is, I remember you saying last year that it was a sort of, I don't want to say a threat to the summer programs, but part of the challenge of the summer programs was that more and more districts were offering their own programs, as you referred to now. And I just wonder, do you feel more sanguine about West Hartford's role in it, or do you continue to see a possible decline or competition for students, or where do you see those trends going?
No, it remains highly attractive to our in-district students, but again, we want to increase the diversity of the program by attracting more out-of-district students. And part of that is appealing to our neighboring districts to allow their students to have get-ahead credit, to earn get-ahead credit too, which normally they don't. But we've had a lot of calls this past summer. We attracted more of Newington students that have dropped off in the past, and so we've had some conversations. They've asked for us to share our curriculum. They want to work with us in terms of our curriculum, and just, you know, assuring them that we are attracting quality teachers as well. So we're rebuilding the out-of-district recruitment and enrollments there, but it continues to be a thriving program for our students in our district.
I just have a quick question. Is there any demand for elementary age students who aren't already in like Summer Connections or in one of the other programs that already exist for certain communities? Is there something for the younger ones, not kindergarten, first grade, or the going into kindergarten readiness, but that age that usually goes to camp and things like that? I'm just curious.
The truth is, we can't compete because of our wages. So what we have to charge people to come versus vis-a-vis a camp program, we're locked in with what we pay teachers. So if it's a teacher, so that's really the issue.
Great, thanks so much. And last and certainly not least, Mr. Chip Ward.
All right, well, this is our first snapshot. Welcome back, Happy New Year, to one of many numbers presentations that I get to give during the course of the year. So, as projected, we have fewer students this year than last year. We're down about 30 students, but we are about 130 above where we were projected to be. So we've had a large influx. I mean, these things happen. I mean, it's, you know, a couple percentage points, something like that. But it's interesting where it happened. At the elementary school level, we're down 30 from last year, but we're up 86 from projected, but they're at grades 1, 2, and 5. Normally, it's like kindergarten, which is where I've got the most level of uncertainty, because that's where, you know, we really don't know how many kids were born here 5 years ago. So we'll take a look at that as the enrollments, you know, firm up by October 1st, and that'll factor into next year's projection. We budgeted for 208 classrooms at the elementary level. We're actually currently now at 209. We added one section. All of them are under the board's class size guidelines, except for Bugby at grade 2, where we've added some TAs because they're at 23 and 24. Average class size is around 20, which is typically where we've been for many years now. The middle school levels, enrollments are generally a little higher than expected, but certainly within the capacity of the staffing to absorb. 28 more students at grade 6, roughly on schedule in grade 7, and 18 more students than projected in grade 8. At the high school level, we're down as projected. We're down 72 from last year, so we projected 61 down, so we're down 11 more at the high school level. So overall, we're in fine, about where we projected to be at the high school. We're staffed appropriately at all the secondary levels as well as the elementary levels. Pre-K enrollment is up 238 students, 111 of students in regular full-day school day pre-K, with the expansion of Charter Oak to 5 pre-K sections. And so just as a footnote, this is the first day of enrollments. The official ones are the October 1st. We'll get that at the second meeting in October because that's what we'll be reporting to the state. So generally stay roughly the same. They'll go up a little bit in the earlier grade levels, drop a little bit in the secondary schools as class lists are cleaned up with people who changed plans over the summer. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chip. Curious on Bugby grade 2, is there classroom space if we were to change that? Or I know there's a lot of factors that go into play. Was classroom space availability an issue?
Classroom space wasn't an issue. The issue was when the move-ins happened. They didn't happen at the beginning of July or late July. They happened at the very end of August. And so then you weigh the problems of hiring a brand-new teacher, teaching them a curriculum, because you're always, if you're going to add a section, you're doing it to benefit the children and the students. And it realistically happened so late after people already had their class lists, after things were already planned. We had, I think, 4 move-ins in that last week in that grade. So it just became something that what we do is we will increase teaching assistant support, make sure that we're monitoring what's going on in those grades, talking to the teachers in those grades. It's not a classroom location issue, although it would be where the room is situated in the building vis-a-vis the other classrooms for second grade. So it's something we'll monitor because there is a number where you would consider, okay, we may be better off having a teacher, but talking to the people involved in leadership, it's pretty universal. We're best off with adding TAs and adding support for those teachers that are already there, planning, knowing their kids, rather than adding a new section, hiring somebody new that wouldn't be able to start at the start of the school year. So just because it was literally, I think, the 28th we had the last move-in, so.
So from projected to actual budget, the only changes that you're saying we've had is one extra section and some TAs?
Yep.
Okay.
I actually had a similar question to Dave, but I just want to understand it in context of the numbers of the class limit sizes. So when I look down the second grade at Bugby and then the 5th grade at Morley and at Webster Hill are the ones that have 25 kids. So am I right, just to understand the principle, that if the top numbers were lowered in terms of class size, that what it would mean for this year would be that we would have had to add 3 new teachers, leaving aside the question about when it happened?
Well, it's hard to, if we had known about it, 25 is the number typically that we talk about, so no at 25. If it was 24, theoretically, we would have, if we'd known about it earlier, but then it comes in, when do we know about it? So knowing about it in August, to that point, we'd have to have a discussion, is that really what's best? for the
Absolutely.
kids?
No, I meant budgetarily, because we'd talked about what are the financial constraints about changing numbers. So I just want to make sure that I understand that if we were to change numbers, the implication would be, assuming that we knew this in advance, that we would have had to add 3 new teachers. Is that
What number
correct?
are you going for?
Well, assuming that we think that 25 is too high.
So do you want class sizes of 23, 20? That's all a function of where, we provide you with all that information. I mean, that gives you the ideas of what the percentages are going to be vis-à-vis the current board class size guidelines. So, it basically, as you reduce the class size by 1, you basically increase the staffing by 5%.
Right,
Is
so
the
that's what I'm
box-
saying.
is-
And
is
with
the-
so
if
given
you-
these numbers, that's what I was trying to understand. So
Right.
given these numbers, if we were to have said 25 is too high, we don't want anything over 24, the implication would have been, had we known it in time, we would have had to hire 2 new teachers, one at Morley, one at Webster Hill, and then depending on the bug beat, I mean, assuming that that number was, we would also have had to hire someone else at
Yeah, you'd have
Bugby.
to take a look at it systemically, like we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a specific example here, but next year it could be a very different.
Absolutely, no, yeah,
it could
I
be
was
a-
just,
So, I mean, it's very difficult to try, other than to say,
Mm-hmm.
as we outlined in the memo, which is, okay, what happens if you stick to class size guidelines, and what does it look like historically over the last 5 years? Because some years, it will cost you nothing
Right.
to reduce it, and other years, it'll cost you 11 teachers.
well, and
So
that's why I was
that's the
asking,
tricky-
because I
that's the
kept
trick,
saying,
right.
but I don't understand, we've never hit it. And so this is an example of how it does matter in
Right.
these, okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly.
And I would add, just in terms of numbers when we look at things, because Morley's such a great example, because there's often, if you're in a grade that you happen to have a cusp number, it happened in my daughter at Duffy, she was just always in 24s, 25s, however went through. But like you look at Morley, so 25 in 5th grade, 2 sections of 25, didn't add a section. I'd point out in kindergarten, we didn't cut a section either. When we went with 14, 14, 15, we didn't get the move-ins in kindergarten there. In a tougher budget season, would you maybe have done that? Maybe, but that also means you're taking a kindergarten teacher and maybe moving them or shuffling a kindergarten to 2 and the 2nd grade teacher that can teach 5th grade to 5th grade. So it's always this, that's the worries as summertime, as numbers come in, because you're hoping they're coming in certain. And then you keep watching thinking, oh my God, am I going to have to cut this? And I mean, I don't want to be a district that signs contracts with people and then in July says, well, you know what, just kidding. And I would point out, while we're 1 over here in terms of teacher, we're also over in special education. We had some high impact move-ins, and also we mentioned behavioral assistants that we're actually increasing in that area. So we'll give you better numbers in October of where we are with staffing too.
I mean-
But I don't want the illusion that we're flat. We're over.
Right, I mean, speaking of illusions and narratives, I mean, I think we can talk about the overs, but the numbers these are the lowest class sizes we've ever had.
Yeah,
think
I
the
mean, last year
takeaway
was the
is-
lowest ever, and
No, this year's more in
year's-
line. Last year was a
Yeah.
19.4 average, this year's a 19.9, which is a more typical average.
You know, 4 or 5, I mean, please.
no, the
And
class
this-
averages
and this
were
is
very
it's an
satisfying.
important
I'm sorry,
note.
I'm a numbers guy, so.
I
just-
understand, but this is an important note.
Yeah.
For financial reasons, for optics, and for the students on the ground, but I think this is, I mean, I spent some time in LA this summer, folks, and this doesn't exist. This is a really sweet scenario for our district in considering a lot of things. We need to keep that in mind. And I think it's also a kind of a healthy conversation, because we can have any kind of conversation we want, but that's important.
Let's have an unhealthy, oh, I'm sorry, I just had one other question, sorry, which was, you talked about the number of kids in full-time pre-K. What was the demand? I mean, did everybody who wanted get in? Did half the people? Did a
No.
tenth of the people?
No. I think we had, we filled the demand at Webster Hill. We filled about half the demand at Smith and maybe between a third and a quarter of the demand at Charter Oak.
There is no doubt that in the future, as we fund more pre-K, we will have the demand for more pre-K.
There's a lot of building going on in West Hartford. You got Bishop's Place, small, it's actually fairly large, but a small condo going across from Big Y, and then I think, where was it, St. Mary's? And then, yeah, huge complex there. And then additionally, on the West Hartford line, and that, I think there's a few. So any numbers that you can share with us? That is there a
So,
algorithm you go through to get that?
yep, we know the addresses of all the apartments. I work with the planning and zoning board. We know where the one-bedrooms are, the two-bedrooms are. We get no kids out of a one-bedroom. We get maybe 0.1 or 0.2 kids out of a two-bedroom, and we get our typical 0.6 to 0.8 kids out of a three-bedroom condo and apartment. So I'm not worried typically about this, and this is in a universe where we have 20,000 housing units. So adding even 500 apartments, which I think would exceed the entire universe of that, I don't see a tremendous number of students coming out of that would impact us at the schools. It's nice, but we just don't see, like when that whole development went in at the old Talcott Junior High School. Yeah, the condo, the one bedrooms, 0 kids. 2 bedrooms, 1 kid out of, I don't know, 18 units. And then, but those 3-bedroom townhouses, yeah, we got our normal types of kids. So it's only when you get to the 3 bedrooms that we really see significant enrollment that we have to worry about.
Thank you. Chip, I know that it's early, and I know that we're not going to have final numbers until October 1st, but do we have any sense of how many kids came to Charter Oak from across the district who would have been enrolled in their own neighborhood schools? Do we have any sense of that at all at this point in time?
No, not, I think I don't have any sense of that yet. I'll pull that stuff together once we're squared away. Clearly, 50 of the 80 kids in the pre-K I know were not neighborhood kids.
Right. I'm more specifically interested in the K through 5.
Most of what we're going to see is in K.
Right. Understood.
K and 1. Yeah. We're not going to, there are very few kids that are going to come for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. There isn't a big change in that. It's going to be at the pre-K, K1 is the approach in Charter Oak. But we'll have that information around October 15th.
Splendid, thank you very much. Please.
Just in terms of the regular superintendent's update, with some of the things that happened this summer that we might not have been aware of, I'm happy to announce in July of 2016, Dr. Michelle Gravelin, our math department supervisor at Conard and Sedgwick, was honored as the winner in San Diego of the Computer Science Teachers Association Administrator Impact Award. Quoting the site, Dr. Avalon was nominated for this award because she strives to increase access to computer science education on small scales at her local school, but also throughout her district, and is someone who truly believes in investing her time and energy into the teaching programs and consistently seek ways to grow. There's a quote, I think Steve Zuckerberg, that talks about 10 years from now in every school they'll be teaching coding, and we'll be wondering what took so long to do that. Michelle really has been at the forefront of pushing this, and along with Jackie Coricelli, and our coding programs and computer science programs, and it was nice for the district to get recognition, because that is an area that we don't necessarily talk about where we are, but numbers-wise of students exposed to computer science, high-level computer science programs, we are far and away the largest district throughout the area in AP computer science. Far and away in that area. So congratulations to Michelle there. I want to congratulate Amina Lampkin from Hall, senior at Hall, has been named student representative to the State Board of Education for the state of Connecticut, which is just a great honor, and it's great for West Hartford to have our own representative there. Maybe when we wonder about who can we talk to about these things, we can talk to Amina, which is great. I want to mention Be the Match, a Marrow donor registry drive that I mentioned at Convocation that we're going to be doing 18 to 44-year-olds, Thursday, September 15th, 2016. All it is a swab of the cheek here in room 400, and that could genuinely save a life as far as the match is mostly looking for stem cells and blood transfusions from those people. 70% of the time it's a blood transfusion looking for those from that. So trying to match donors to those that are suffering from a number of diseases. So we're happy to be doing that.
The date again, daytime?
The date is Thursday, September 15th from 2 to 6 o'clock in room 400. You have to be between 18 and 44. September 13th, graduate of the PLTI, Tony Sisti, is in charge of, has put together a youth suicide prevention forum at St. Joseph's, University of St. Joseph's. And that'll be from 6 to 7:30, September 13th, 2016. I will be on the panel with people far more qualified than me, I'm sure, but an important conversation. There's 350 seats. RSVP, you'll see these forms around, and on our website, you can see where to connect to register to RSVP if people would like to attend that evening. Evening forum, very important topic and something we definitely want to keep talking about. September 14th is the Bridge Breakfast, the annual Bridge Breakfast. If you haven't been invited, I will send a reminder from Suzanne. Our partnership with the Bridge, every year we talk about mental health and what we do for our students. A lot of what we do is make sure we have a partnership with the Bridge and we know who to call and who to offer their family support and their work. We are so fortunate in this community to have the Bridge. And I've been there at times where I'm just calling Pat Tyler, you know, it just happens to be that timing where can we get somebody in the community out to people? And one of the things to remember when things happen during the summer and people may not be in school, we still have those connections with community-based organizations like the Bridge. And so that's always a great day to come together with the Bridge and to continue our partnership and kick off a new year with them. So, that's that.
Splendid. Any questions for Mr. Moore? Moving on. Approval of minutes, a motion to approve the minutes from June 7, 2016, regular Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I have a revision.
Splendid. Thank you all. I'm sorry. Thank you for your presentations.
Yeah.
Sorry. Over to you, Mr. Sarson.
Page 4.
Page 4.
Mr. Dempsey is listed as Mr. Dempsey, and given the good work that he does, I think we ought to acknowledge his name correctly, if that's possible.
Page 4, Mr. Dempsey. Yes.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. Any other revisions? This is the page 4 again. Mr. Dempsey to Mr. Dempsey.
Could you spell that for me, please?
I believe it's D-E-N-C-E-Y. C-Y. Ah, see, there you go. I would have screwed it up had I been doing this.
No other corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the June 7, 2016 regular Board of Education meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? I abstain. I was not at that meeting. It is so moved. Information reports from many of you all. Welcome back. I didn't welcome everyone else back from the summer. I didn't even say that. Welcome back.
Should we
Welcome
tell
back.
everybody what we did this summer?
No. Not at all. No one's interested. But welcome back nonetheless.
I was trying to extend this another 10 minutes, you see. Thanks.
So, well, it's my pleasure to welcome Sarah Berman and Taylor Steer. And we met briefly. We've done some emailing. We met briefly before the meeting, and I gave them some hot tips on how to lend their wisdom and survive the Board of Ed meetings. But mainly, it's really a pleasure to have you here. On behalf of the whole board, thank you for this time and the service. It really is important because, as I mentioned, it's what we all do as part of this larger democratic process, albeit imperfect, but we do this, and this is our service is really part of that. And having your voice and interventions and suggestions about what's going on at the schools, given your knowledge and history and connections, it's really, really, really beneficial. So I thank you, and I encourage you to speak up when you would like. And also, this is a time that is throughout and during the meeting. And this is also time for you, not necessarily now, but in future meetings, to just give us a heads up of what's coming up, what's going on, what has happened at your schools. So if you have anything today, otherwise you can certainly take a pass.
Okay, so thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here. I'm really looking forward to this year and learning a lot. So Hall's off to a great opening start. We started 2 days before school with freshman orientation, which was run by the Link Crew, which we've been doing for about 7 years now. As we talked before, the main office is almost ready to go. The gym floor looks awesome. And we're really excited about, we have LED lights up all in the hallways, which look a lot better. It's a lot brighter in there, and it's a lot better for the earth. And all teachers, this is new for this year, all have Google Classroom pages. So it's really helping our school go digital, and it's really interesting. And I think it's going to be really good addition to our education. And right now, we're just kind of in the process of, getting back into school. There's class meetings going on with the administration and Mr. Zatoon, and fall sports are starting up.
So, well, thank you. Mine's very similar to what Sarah said. As Dr. Morrow said, we have a brand new gym floor. It's absolutely amazing. We also have brand new bleachers, which we get to use this Friday, Connor versus Glastonbury, so come to that. Aside from that, I was very lucky to be part of freshman orientation this year, along with Link Crew. The freshmen seemed very excited to come to Conard. The students that I met were very motivated, very kind and polite, so I'm happy for them to be part of the board, not the board, the student body this year. As for the returning students that I talked to, they were also very motivated to start the new year. That's basically it. Thank you.
Welcome again, and thanks again for your service.
Just
Please.
If my memory serves me correct, because I look at class lists every year, didn't you two, sir, go to Bristow? Yeah, and you guys were classmates? Yeah. See, this, I think, is the first time that two Conard and Hall, but my memory might, so I'm just going off class lists from years ago.
You caught that?
Yeah.
That's scary, man. I mean, that's great. Good, wow. Mark Zdanowitz right there, folks, right there. We expect great things. All right, thank you. Future business, announcement of future meeting dates right here. 7 o'clock start is our time. We welcome all our visitors watching at home and who watch us after the date on record. Next meeting, September 20th, followed by October 4, and then October 18. Any requests for future agenda items?
I want to hear more from Mark Zdanowitz.
We'll have a special day just for Mark Zdanowitz.
What other things he knows?
Okay. Anyone else? Splendid. So this is a time to request future agenda items, but we can talk about that at a future date. Comments from visitors. Anyone would like to address the board tonight? No? We have no executive session tonight. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.